I didn't mean to do it. Not at first. But when I looked out across my land and saw that shiny white Porsche parked right in front of my gate, blocking my harvester, my barn access, everything, I swear something in me cracked. The sun was just starting to dip behind the hills, casting gold across my fields, and there she stood. Karen. Sunglasses too big for her face, arms crossed, smug as a fox in the henhouse. Like she owned the place. She didn't live here. She didn't even belong on this side of the fence. But ever since the HOA got involved, and ever since Karen got herself voted president of our little community council, she'd been crawling all over folks' property like some suburban dictator with a clipboard and a god complex. This wasn't suburbia. This was my ranch. My home. And this was the third time this week she'd blocked the gate with that Porsche. I walked up slow, boots crunching against gravel. My hands were dirty from the field. Hers? Fresh manicure, not a speck of dust on her. You're blocking my gate, I said flatly. She didn't even flinch. This is public access. The HOA map clearly shows this road is shared. I wanted to scream. This wasn't public. It was on the deed. My granddaddy built that fence in 1968, and it hadn't moved an inch. And I've told you, I said, voice low, you're trespassing. Karen smiled like I was a child throwing a tantrum. Then call the cops, cowboy. We'll see who they side with. That's when it happened. That exact second. I looked over at my John Deere parked 10 feet away. My harvester. And something in my gut whispered, just do it. I didn't plan it. But I sure as hell didn't stop myself either. I climbed into that beast, turned the key, and as the engine roared to life, I watched her smile falter. Just a little. Not enough for fear. Just confusion. But I kept going. Forward. The harvester rumbled toward her car, inch by inch. She stepped back. Started shouting. You're crazy. You touched that car and I swear. Too late. The front blades crushed through the Porsche's front bumper like it was made of tinfoil. Metal screamed. Glass popped. Her shriek carried across the field like a siren. I didn't stop until the whole front end was mangled beneath me, a mess of wires and European engineering. Then I turned off the engine. Climbed down. Looked her dead in the eye. You were saying? Her mouth hung open. Her face was white as bone. And just like that, everything exploded. Flashback, 3 weeks earlier. The first time Karen ever stepped foot on my land, she was holding a bottle of overpriced wine and a fake smile. Said she was welcoming the new neighbors. Only problem? I'd lived there for 12 years. She was the new neighbor. I'm Karen, she chirped. President of the HOA. I remember wiping my hands on my jeans, squinting into the sun. We don't really do HOA stuff out here. Oh, but you will, she said, her tone a little too sweet. Things are changing around here. We're elevating the neighborhood. That's when I realized what she really meant. Karen wasn't just another rich housewife with too much time and too little sense. She was on a mission to fix the area, starting with people like me. She didn't care that this land had been in my family for 3 generations. She didn't care that I worked dawn to dusk to keep it alive. All she saw was a chance to control. Within a week, the letters started. Citations for excess dust from fieldwork. Warnings about unsightly equipment in view of the road. Even a complaint about the smell of cows. I tried to reason with her. Sat down at the HOA meeting, wearing my best button-up, tried to speak plain and honest. But Karen? She turned it into a show. He's bringing down property values, she said to the room. We're trying to build a community. Not a barnyard. People laughed. Right then, I knew she wasn't just petty. She was dangerous. And she wasn't done. That Porsche? It was just the start. Karen had a plan, and destroying my livelihood was only phase 1. But I had a plan too. One she'd never see coming. The morning after I crushed Karen's Porsche with my harvester, I half expected to see blue and red lights flashing at the end of my drive. But when I opened the front door, all I found was a folded notice nailed to my gate like some kind of medieval threat. Immediate cease and desist, unauthorized farm equipment operation. It was from the HOA. Not the police. Not the county. Just Karen, flexing her imaginary authority again, trying to turn a private feud into some HOA-style court drama. I laughed once. Then I tore the notice in half. But I'd be lying if I said the pressure wasn't building. I had crops ready to harvest, livestock to manage, and every hour Karen kept blocking access or sending another fake violation. My work slowed, and so did my income. I didn't have the money for lawyers. She knew that. She had a husband in real estate, a lawyer brother, and enough HOA votes wrapped around her French-tipped fingers to steamroll anybody she didn't like. She wanted me off that land. That much was clear. What wasn't clear yet was why. I decided to pay a visit to the county office. I figured maybe there was something on record, zoning changes, new developments, anything that might explain why Karen was acting like a rattlesnake in a designer blouse. What I found was worse than I imagined. Yeah, said Susan, the woman behind the county records desk. Your land's been flagged for review. There's a proposal to rezone the entire eastern block, including your ranch, into a mixed-use community. Mixed use? I repeated. Shopping, condos, a golf course. Fancy stuff. There's a private realty group pushing it hard. My stomach sank. Who's behind the proposal? She squinted at the file. Westland Horizons. That ring a bell? I stepped back. My jaw clenched. That was Karen's husband's company. So that was it. The letters, the Porsche, the fake violations. It wasn't about property values or dust or even the smell of manure. Karen was trying to make my life hell so I'd give up and sell cheap. They wanted to bulldoze my family's land and turn it into a parking lot for Starbucks and yoga studios. I drove home in silence, fists white on the steering wheel. For the first time in years, I thought about my dad. How he used to walk these fields with me at sunrise, coffee in one hand, calloused fingers brushing the wheat as he whispered, "You take care of the land, son, and it'll take care of you." He died 5 years ago. Karen didn't just want to steal dirt. She wanted to erase my family. That night, I didn't sleep. I walked the perimeter of the ranch, thinking. Planning. I didn't have the kind of money to fight Westland Horizons in court, but I had something else. History. See, Karen made one mistake. She assumed she could push me off the land without doing her homework. But my great-grandfather didn't just leave behind soil and fences, he left behind paper. Proof. Handwritten deeds. Boundary surveys. Land use contracts that predated the HOA by nearly a century. I dug them out of the old chest in my barn loft, right where Dad kept them. As I opened each brittle page, the weight of my family pressed down on me not as a burden, but as armor. I was not leaving. Karen picked the wrong man to fight. The next morning, I walked over to the community center during the monthly HOA meeting. They didn't expect me to show. Karen was mid-sentence when I pushed the doors open and stepped into the hall. And until Mr. Walker complies with residential guidelines. I held up a folder and dropped it onto the table with a thud. Miss Karen, I said evenly, you want to talk about guidelines? Let's talk about how your husband's company is trying to illegally pressure me off my land for profit. The room went still. Karen blinked, smile faltering. Excuse me? I opened the folder and slid the documents across the table. Here's the deed. Here's the land patent. This ranch has been family-owned since before your daddy ever picked up a golf club. And if you think you're going to pave over my legacy, you better start learning what a subpoena looks like. Someone gasped. A few people whispered. But I wasn't done. Oh, and your little Porsche? I leaned in. It was parked on private property. That means you were trespassing. Karen's face went pale. Then red. Then that thin-lipped smile came back, trembling but defiant. You don't scare me, Jordan. I stepped closer, dropped my voice. Good. 'Cause I'm just getting started. Later that week, a drone buzzed over my field. At first, I thought it was some kid messing around until I followed it back. And saw where it landed. Right in Karen's backyard. She was spying on me. And I had no idea what she was planning next. The drone changed everything. At first, I didn't believe what I was seeing. Just a tiny gray dot zipping across the sky over my west field. But when I noticed it hovering every morning, same time, same pattern, something clicked. That wasn't a kid with a new toy. That was surveillance. And when I followed it with my binoculars one morning and watched it land right on Karen's pool deck, it became war. I didn't go storming over there. That's what she expected. She wanted another blow-up, another angry farmer moment she could spin to the HOA and her husband's company. So I did what my daddy taught me when coyotes circled the chicken coops at night. I set a trap. That afternoon, I walked to the far edge of my property right where the drone always hovered and set out something special, a bunch of clearly marked toxic chemical barrels, which were actually just painted oil drums filled with water and some well-placed PVC piping. From above, it looked shady. Sketchy even. Just the kind of bait Karen couldn't resist reporting. And she didn't. 2 days later, I got a visit from the county environmental office. They walked the field, took some photos, and left confused when they realized there was nothing hazardous at all. But then one of them said something strange, funny. A woman called this in anonymously. Said you were dumping illegal runoff. I asked, did she give her name? He shook his head. Nope. Just said she lived in the community and wanted to stay anonymous. Right. Anonymous like her drone. Anonymous like the dozens of complaints she'd filed under fake names about dangerous animals and loud machinery. Karen wasn't just harassing me, she was building a case. One she could take to the county, the court, or the public. All to get me labeled as a threat to the community. But that's where she slipped. Because the moment you lie to the government, especially about environmental hazards, you're not just playing dirty. You're playing illegal. I met with an old friend, Maddie, who worked as a local journalist. She grew up in this town same as I did, back when the feed store doubled as a diner and the internet barely reached the county line. When I told her what was going on, her eyes lit up. You got receipts? I nodded. Deeds, HOA notices, video of the drone, even the call log with the county office. She whistled. She's toast. Maddie didn't just write a story. She launched an entire investigative series called The War Over Walker Ranch. It went viral in our town overnight. Neighbors started whispering. The same ones who voted for Karen's HOA rulebook were suddenly turning their heads when I walked by, not in judgment this time, but guilt. Embarrassment. I even caught one of the board members, old Mr. Travis, leaving flowers by my mailbox with a note, "I'm sorry. I didn't know." But Karen? She doubled down. The next HOA meeting was packed. Standing room only. Karen stood at the podium, wearing her pearl necklace and blazer like she was announcing a presidential campaign. This community, she declared, has a problem. And that problem is people refusing to adapt. Mr. Walker may have history on that land, but history can't stop progress. If we let one man hold up development, then we all suffer. Higher taxes. Lower values. Declining standards. That's when I stood. I didn't yell. I didn't even raise my voice. I just walked to the front of the room, took out my phone, and tapped play on a recording. Hi, yes, I'd like to report a hazardous chemical situation. There's this old man dumping toxic waste near our kids' play area. Karen's voice. Crystal clear. Gasps echoed around the room. Her eyes went wide. That's private. That's illegal recording. Not in this state, I said calmly. Especially when you're using county lines to lie and ruin a man's livelihood. Silence. Then Maddie stood up in the back and raised her hand. I can confirm, she said, Karen's husband's company stands to make over $2 million if Mr. Walker's land is rezoned and sold. This isn't about community. It's about cash. It was over in seconds. Karen's control collapsed like a termite-ridden fence. Board members resigned. Petitions were signed. Her husband's project? Blocked by a formal protest launched that same night. Karen left the meeting red-faced and speechless. She didn't even stop to defend herself. But I knew her. She wasn't going quietly. 3 days later, I woke up to find the front gate of my ranch wide open. Fence cut. Livestock missing. And a single word spray painted on the barn door in red. Move. Karen wasn't done. But neither was I. I stared at the word on my barn door, move, as the wind picked up dust off the road and scattered it across the gravel like ash. The fence was sliced clean, like someone used bolt cutters in the dead of night. Half my goats were gone, scared off into the hills or stolen outright. I should have felt rage, but what I felt was steel. Cold and sharp, settling into my bones. Karen wanted a war. Now she was gonna get one. But I wasn't going to fight her in the dark. I was going to drag her lies into the light, where everyone could see the dirt under her perfect nails. That morning, I called the sheriff. Not the county office. Not the HOA. The sheriff. I showed him the fence. The animal's gone. The footage from the trail cams I'd hidden near the property line after the drone incident. And there it was, grainy, but clear, a black luxury SUV pulling up to the gate around 3 a.m., a figure stepping out in yoga pants and a hoodie, bolt cutters in hand. It wasn't Karen. Not exactly. It was her sister, Dana. The same woman who'd spoken at the last HOA meeting defending Karen's vision. That's conspiracy, the sheriff said. Trespassing. Vandalism. Animal endangerment, too. You want to press charges? I nodded once. I want every charge you can throw. He nodded, serious. We'll take care of it. But I gotta warn you, Jordan, people like her? They don't back off easy. I smiled for the first time in days. Good. I'm not easy, either. 2 days later, Karen showed up at the edge of my field again. No Porsche this time. No sunglasses. Just fury wrapped in designer jeans. You're really gonna press charges against my sister, she hissed. You sent her, I said, arms crossed. She stepped closer. You think anyone's gonna feel sorry for you? You crushed my car. And you tried to crush my family's legacy. Difference is, I got it on paper. You got it in lies. She sneered. This town is changing, Jordan. You can't stop it. I looked her straight in the eye. I don't need to stop the town. Just you. That was the last thing I said before I turned my back and walked away. The news broke the next morning. HOA president under investigation for conspiracy, harassment, and property destruction. Maddie ran the full story with every receipt I had. The drone footage, the anonymous complaint calls, the zoning conflict of interest, even the footage of Dana caught at my gate. Social media tore Karen to shreds. Her husband's company pulled out of the rezoning plan that afternoon. But the best part? The town didn't just rally behind me. They rallied behind the land. Neighbors I hadn't spoken to in years showed up with fence posts, tools, and trucks. We rebuilt the gate together. We rounded up the livestock. One kid at Jason, from the hardware store, even painted over the word move on my barn door with a mural of a tractor cutting through gold fields under a blue sky. The same harvester that crushed her Porsche. I hadn't even seen it since the day of the incident. It sat at the edge of the field, covered in dust. I climbed in. Started it up. And took it for one more ride. right past Karen's house. She was sitting on her porch, bags by her feet, realtor sign in the yard. Our eyes met. I didn't wave. Just kept rolling. 3 months later, I got a letter in the mail. Certified. Official. The HOA has been formally dissolved by majority vote. Turns out, when people realized how easily someone like Karen could abuse power, they decided it wasn't worth the risk. My land was safe. My name cleared. And every morning now, when I look out at my field, I don't see conflict. I see resilience. I see roots deep and stubborn, like the people who live here. And every now and then, when someone asks me what really happened that day, the day I crushed that Porsche with my harvester, I smile and say, sometimes, you don't fight fire with fire. You fight it with horsepower.